Prajajana Ranjana Jamunati Ravanachari Jamunati Ravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Haribo Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunati Ravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Hari Jai Vishnupad, Pramukh Supreme Rajakacharya, Stotra Rishatar, Srimad is Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Shri Shri Iskcon Hyderabad Ki Jai, Gaur Pramanandi. Yeah, okay.
Hare Krishna. So we are very, very fortunate to have amongst us His Grace Yogendra Prabhu. So Prabhuji is Srila Prabhupada's disciple. So he is born and raised in USA. And Prabhuji moved to Sweden in 1975. And he was initiated by Srila Prabhupada in 1976. So Prabhuji has been serving in the last 4 decades in various capacities within the Swedish Iskcon temples, distributing books, assisting in the kitchen, actively participating in the farm and forest projects, especially in the Iskcon Almvik farm community. In 1990s, Prabhuji led outreach efforts in northern Sweden, helping establish a Govinda's restaurant and preaching center amongst the growing interest among the youths there. Prabhuji also contributed as a proofreader for the North European BBT during the digitalization of Srila Prabhupada books. Prabhuji is a lifelong learner, and Prabhuji returned to school, means learning at 65, earning accreditation as a religion teacher at 68 through Sweden's free education program. Prabhuji now serves in the far north teaching Gaudiya Vaishnavism in English and Swedish languages to Hindu children. He maintains active connections with the Indian families on the Finland and Sweden border and regularly participates in Janmashtami, Radhashtami, and many other festivals, encouraging all of them in Krishna consciousness. Prabhuji supports devotee scholars engaged in university outreach, assisting with their writings in English. Prabhuji has been serving as brahmachari for 5 years, then 20 years as a grihastha, and last 22 years as a vanaprastha. Prabhuji has been wearing saffron from 2016 under the guidance of senior sannyasi, His Holiness Sridhar Krishna Swami Maharaj. So we are very, very fortunate to have Prabhuji amongst us. Let us heartily welcome Prabhuji by once loudly chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Great honor to be here in Iskcon, Hyderabad for the first time. I was kindly invited by Hanuman Vijay and his wife, and I'm very impressed here with this wonderful temple here. Let me ask one question. Who here understands English? Really? Okay, very good. Does anybody need a translation to Telugu? No, maybe there's someone who could provide that service if needed. If there's any question of language, please raise your hand and ask me to repeat something or to explain a certain term. I won't at all be disturbed. Quite the contrary. I'll be enlivened to know that you're actually listening and you were eager to understand something that you didn't quite catch the first time. And probably if you didn't catch it, there's probably a lot of others who didn't catch it either. So please don't hesitate to raise a hand and ask about something. So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam, Spotless Purana, Amala Purana, as Lord Chaitanya called it. And we're reading from the 5th canto. And we've come now to chapter 12, which is entitled Raghunath Converses with Jad Bharat. And we're reading now text number 14. Is that correct? Right. So let us first offer our humble obeisances. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Right, so now we'll recite the Sanskrit here, the best of our ability. So I read one line at a time, and you'll kindly repeat. Aham Pura Bharato Namaraja Vimukta Drishta Shruta Sangha Bandhaha Aradanam Bhagavata Ihamano Mrigo Bhavam Mrigasagan Datartaha Aham Pura Bharato Namaraja Vimukta Drishta Shruta Sangha Bandhaha Aradanam Bhagavata Ihamano Mrigo Bhavam Mrigasagan Datartaha Aham Bara Bharamaraja Muktas Drishta Shruta Sangha Bandhaha Aharadanam Bhagavata Ihamano Mrigopavam Mriga Sangata Tartaha Aham Pura Parto Namaraja Vimukta Drishta Shruta Sangha Bandhaha Aradanam Bhagavata Ihamano Aham pura bharato namaraja vimukta drishta skruta sangha bandha aradhanam bhagavata ihamano mrigo bhava mriga sangha datat. Vaishnavis? Aham pura bharato namaraja vimukta drishta shruta sangha bandha aradhanam bhagavato ihamano mrigo bhava mriga sangha datartaha. Aham pura bharato namaraja vimukta sita nanandamanda. Okay, word for word now. Please repeat. Aham. Who knows what it means? I. Pura. Formerly, in my previous birth. Bharata Nama Raja. A king named Maharaj Bharata. Vimukta. Liberated from. Drishta Shruta. By experiencing personally through direct association or by getting knowledge from the Vedas. Sangha bandha, bondage by association. Aradhanam, the worship. Bhagavata, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudeva. Ihamana, always performing. Mriga abhavam, I became a deer. Mriga sangat, because of my intimate association with a deer. Association with a deer. Hata arta, having neglected the regulative principles in the discharge of devotional service. So here we have Jad Bharat speaking now to Maharaj Rahugana, who had stepped down from his palanquin upon realizing that his carrier was actually a great sadhu who he had looked down upon. So he fell at his feet and now was taking instructions from him. And Jad Bharat says like this: in a previous birth, I was known as Maharaj Bharata. I attained perfection by becoming completely detached from material activities through direct experience, and through indirect experience, I received understanding from the Vedas. I was fully engaged in the service of the Lord, but due to misfortune, I became very affectionate to a small deer, so much so that I neglected my spiritual duties. Due to my deep affection for the deer, in my next life, I had to accept the body of a deer. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The incident herein described is very significant. In a previous verse, it is stated, Vina Mahat Padarajo Bhishekam. One cannot attain perfection without smearing the dust from the lotus feet of an exalted devotee on his head. If one always follows the orders of the spiritual master, there's no question of falling down. As soon as a foolish disciple tries to overtake his spiritual master and become ambitious to occupy his post, he immediately falls down. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado, yasya aprasad nagati vitopi. If the spiritual master is considered an ordinary man, the disciple surely loses his chance to advance further. Despite a very rigid life in devotional service, Bharata Maharaj did not consult a spiritual master when he became overly attached to a deer. Consequently, he became strongly attached to the deer, and forgetting his spiritual routine, he fell down. Aham pura bharato namaraja vimukta drishta shuta sangha bandhaha aradanam bhagavata ihamano murigo bhavam mrigasangad datartaha. In my previous birth, I was known as Maharaj Bharata. I attained perfection by becoming completely detached from material activities. Through direct experience, through indirect experience, I received understanding from the Vedas. I was fully engaged in the service of the Lord, but due to my misfortune, I became very affectionate to a small deer, so much so that I neglected my spiritual duties. Due to my deep affection for the deer, in my next life, I had to accept the body of a deer. Om Agana Timarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Gurim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurum Dinatarna Vancha Kalpa Tarobhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So for hoping to speak from the heart, I would like to especially focus on 3 points. One is judging devotees, how to regard devotees properly. 2, I would also like to speak about how to be the friend and to be the protector and to be the guide. And 3, I would also like to mention how to prepare for the end of time. These 3 points. First, one has to be very careful when judging devotees. Actually, it said Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra Navige Bujaya, that Prabhupada has compiled a couple of verses and put it together in that form, as far as I understand the Bengali. And it means that in order to understand the mind of a highly elevated, advanced devotee of the Lord, one must also be a very highly advanced devotee of the Lord. So, speaking for myself, I think we should be very, very careful when trying to judge the devotees. Here we have the example of Maharaj Bharata. He came completely detached. You remember it was said that he left his wife and his kingdom and his animals and treasury and the whole thing. The comparison was like when you pass stool. Nobody is interested to stick around and you just leave, right? Flush the toilet or, whatever. Go away. So he was so detached like that. That's how, advanced he was. Although he had fabulous attractions that would normally captivate the mind of any normal, materially conditioned soul, right? Fabulous wealth, beautiful wife, this, that, so many things, servants, etc., etc., etc. Plenty of room for attachment, right? but he just quit it all. So elevated he was. And it's mentioned here both by his direct experience and also from the Vedic understanding. So he had both theoretical, you could interpret it to mean that he had both Gyan and Vigyan. So he left, and he was so, but by the quirk of fate, the mother deer was scared to death by some roar of a lion and had a miscarriage, and this poor little deer baby was floating in the drowning, and he picked it up and became its friend. So we have to be very careful about how to judge devotees. It said, Api chet sudaracharo bhajate mam ananyabhak sadureva samantavya samyag vyavasito hi saha. That even if he commits the most sudarachar, very bad, deviation from Vaishnav achar, proper behavior of a devotee, still, if he's ananyabhak, right? Yeah. Api chet sudaracharo manyate mam. Api chet sudaracharo bhajate mam ananyabhak. He's ananyabhak. He doesn't quit. He will, understand what I've done. It's not proper. And he sincerely regrets. First acknowledges, that's really the first step to becoming corrected and carrying on in a proper dynamic after having made a mistake, right? Is one has to acknowledge. That's a big step in the right direction when one admits to oneself, that was not good what I did. That's a sign of a devotee going back in the right direction. And then using one's intelligence to rectify the situation, how to avoid that pitfall, And it may not be immediately possible. Actually, Prabhupada says that, in regard to Krishna's instruction in I think it's the third canto, that third chapter that in the Gita, he says that a devotee is non-envious. And Prabhupada explains in the purport that even if one is not immediately able to come up to the proper standard, but still, despite his, hope, his despair or feeling of insufficiency, still he does not deviate from the path. He doesn't accuse, Krishna, why Krishna made such a high path that I can't immediately follow. No, he doesn't make some mistake. He is introspective. And that's a sign of a good devotee. So devotees will take shelter of a good example. And if one tries to become better, no matter what one has done, no matter what baggage one may have in karma, psychology, and deep vasanas, and whatever situation one may find oneself in, if one is determined to improve, one is determined to aim at that proper standard of behavior. No illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling, no meat eating, sattva behavior. If one aims for that, then one is a good devotee. And one should be careful never to look down upon the devotee who may have some imperfections due to having been born in a certain family or background or have a certain bad habit. If one is properly situated in his determination, that's what the term that Krishna uses. The one, Vyavasayatmaka Buddhir, Ekeha Kruanandana, Bahu Shaka Yanantascha, Buddhayo Vyavasahinam. If the devotee is properly situated in his determination, then that devotee, despite whatever conditioning that devotee may have, we should be very, very careful not to look down upon that devotee. That would be our fault. Krishna warns in the Bhagavad Gita that one must be very careful not to be, the English word they call it, to be judgmental, to think that, I'm so much better, this devotee is so inferior. Be careful. And here we have an example that, this highly elevated devotee somehow or other made this mistake in after having attained a very, very highly elevated position. So, we should be careful there. Okay, that was point one, how to be careful regarding devotees. One should consider oneself lower than a straw in the street, ready to offer all respects to others, but not demanding respect for oneself. That'll be the basis for one's being able to enter into Harinam, Kirtaniya Sadahari, to really get a taste for chanting the holy name in absorption. Okay? That's one thing. Now, second point is Bharat Maharaj, he was Kshatriya, right? And he was the protector, naturally. That's his dharma in their power. They use their power not for their own self-aggrandizement, but they use their power for the protection of the citizens. That's the dharma of the Kshatriya. So, although he had renounced everything, but still it seems that he had a little fragment of a desire to still be the protector. So when the small deer was in, dire straits, was in the danger, then this feeling of being the protector, it came out. And you could say that's good, How much better isn't that than, the world today is sending countless numbers of defenseless animals on a, conveyor belt into the slaughterhouse, one after another. That terrible heartlessness of the butcher, that is, a cause of all the problems of the world. We are involved in so much conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine and everywhere. And violence is rampant. It's a chaotic situation everywhere you turn. And, people are so bewildered by the coverings of the Kali Yuga that they don't see any connection. They're buying their meat, and that money that they paid, it goes directly to pay the salary of that very, very unfortunate person who he has to force the unwilling cow or other animal into the slaughter chamber. And then they, make it unconscious, supposedly. And then they hang it up and they de-blood it. Anyone who does that job, hashugna, that person cannot remain a human being. It's not possible. You could not do that every day, the whole day long, 8 hours a day, to do that job and remain and have a heart still. It's not possible. The butcher, he is excluded from the possibility of ever having any attraction for anything higher in life. So everyone who's paying for their meat, they're implicated in that person's becoming degraded from a human to an animal. That's the price you pay if you buy a piece of meat. So people are so blinded that they can't see that connection. Okay, there are animal sacrifices recommended in the Vedas. Lord Buddha, he rejected the Vedas on that basis. And in the other religions, there's the kosher system in the Jewish religion. There's the halal system in the Muslim religion. The Christians also, Lord Jesus, why they crucified him. Yeah, he went into the temple and they were selling animals to be offered there in the temple in Jerusalem. And he turned over their tables. He said, this is my Father's house. It's an international house of prayer. Thank you. And you have turned it into a den of murderers. And that they couldn't stand. That was going so much against their, the current of society, that they told the Romans that he has to be executed. And then they did it just 4 days later. So what I'm getting at here in this second point is that to be the friend, this is a good thing, but the point is that we are all dependent upon the Supreme Friend. Bhuktaram Yagya Tapasam Sarva Loka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarva Bhutanam Gyatva Mam Shantam Richati. 529, right? So Krishna says that, Bhuktaram Yagya Tapasam, I'm the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, that I am the Lord and Master of all the lokas, of all the places, the 3 worlds, the 14 worlds, the upper, the middle, and the lower planetaries. Everywhere I am that Lord. And Suridam, I am the sweetheart, Surida, the friend. So our only capacity to be a friend is actually when we are empowered by Krishna. Balasya Neha Sharanam Pitara Nashringa. You heard this verse? Prabhupada would quote this often, right? Balasya Neha Sharanam Pitara Nashringa, right? That the Pita, the father, he's only able to protect the Bala, the child, if he's empowered by Lord Nrsingadev, by Krishna, right? This is Prahlad Maharaj. And I remember the one time I got close to serving Srila Prabhupada was in the Bombay Juhu in 1977. In there, we cleaned Prabhupada's rooms. And then Prabhupada came, got out of his sickbed in Mayapur, and where, it was just 6 months before he left. His health was already diminishing significantly, and I had just been initiated. Anyway, I was cleaning his rooms and he came. He didn't go to the rooms though. He decided, I will go to my room in the building, the building place, which was completely unprepared. He went there instead. But anyway, my point in this regard to being the friend was that from that room in Bombay, Prabhupada had the experience that one of the neighbors, the building had residents there, and they had the right to stay there. So Prabhupada was like sharing in the beginning the building with, some residents there. And he had one night he was trying to do his Bhagavatam, or, his translation work in the night. And there was a kid just screaming his head off the whole night there, And, Prabhupada was mentioning that the parents, they're doing everything within their power to try and pacify this kid. But the kid could not be pacified. The parents just didn't have the ability to pacify the kid. He just went on screaming the whole time. And so Prabhupada said in this regard that, okay, you think that you're the protector of your young children. They're completely dependent on you. That's natural, Father and mother have helpless children, small babies, and they have to regard them as being their dependents. But Prabhupada, he called this mental concoction. From the ultimate point of view, it's even in that very Hare Krishna, exemplary position of being the protector of a small child, which is the duty of any good parent, even that is, from the ultimate point of view, simply depending on Krishna's mercy. And Prahlad Maharaj, he goes on to say that even the doctor, he may have so many, highly advanced medical treatments, well developed with very scientific experiment and, proven to be effective, but still they won't work if it's not empowered by Krishna. Mari Krishna Raki K, Raki Krishna Mari K, The doctor is helpless in that regard. And also the boat for a drowning man in the ocean. Nothing will help unless it's Krishna. Krishna will be the only help, ultimately. So, therefore, Maharaj Bharat, he may be, from whose name, we have Bharat. I think there's 3 Bharats, right? There's the brother of Ram, there's Maharaj Bharat, and then who's the third one? Who? There's Bharat, there's Maharaj Bharat. There's one more Bharat. Anyway, there are 3 Bharats, and the name Bharat Varsh, this land of India, has been from those Bharats there. So in any case, he had this feeling of being a protector. But this got him into trouble. He got attached and then he went overboard and he neglected his sadhana. And he was thinking, oh, maybe he's in trouble, and then he went wandering and fell down and he died with this. And then remembering the deer was his, crucial last mistake. Which brings us to the third point. Okay, so we spoke about being the friend, and now the third point is prepare for the end. We all have a certain number of breaths which we have been endowed with, and they're counted, right? At the time of your birth, when my daughter got married to the son of a very nice devotee named Bhadra Prabhu, who comes from a very traditional Pushti Marg family in Gujarat, when he was accepting this arrangement that my daughter would marry his son, and he told me, he said that when you're born, 2 things are already predetermined. One is when you will die, how many breaths you will take, and the other thing is who you will marry. That is the understanding from his family tradition. I appreciated that. Anyway, to get back to the point here, was that, we all have a certain destiny which has been determined. And karmati nirdahati kintucha bhakti bhajan. There is no exception to this inevitable, except for bhakti. If one takes to the path of bhakti, then it's like you pull out the plug from the rotation of the fan, right? Gradually, little less, nothing. That's bhakti. But otherwise, we all have our certain destiny. The body is, goes through its phases. Here today, gone tomorrow, they say in English. And we must have the good sense to be aware of that, right? Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita, Janma. He says that one knowledge, he defines knowledge as Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. To keep that in front here, you may be young and have, power and future, potential like that. But tomorrow there's no guarantee. Who knows? Now I'm 75. I may die, after some of these young brahmacharis. Who knows? God forbid, may you live a long life, and preach and serve. do your potential in Krishna consciousness. Here, the world is in great need of the many, many gurus from India. Bharata Bhumite Manusyahaila Janmajar, Janma Sartarka Kara Para The world is in great need of the Para Upakar, the beneficial welfare work of the Indian Krishna conscious devotees. It's a dire necessity. Anyway, I'm getting off the track. My point was that to prepare for the end. So we have to practice, right? It said, practice makes perfect, right? So, and Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna objected, he said, I'm a Kshatriya, I'm involved in politics, and, this yoga, I'm not going to be able to do it, And then Krishna admits, yes, you're correct. It's not easy. But he said that by detachment and by repetition, by practice, then it's possible. So practice, that means sadhana, that we should. Prabhupada has kindly given us in our Krishna consciousness movement minimum 16 rounds. And his gloss on this very important verse from I think it's the Padma Purana. It's quoted in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's Smartavya Satatam Vishnu Vismartavya Najatuchit, right? Sarva Vede Nishedhyasyu. The last line. Etayor Eva Kinkara. Thank you very much, sir. Etayor Eva Kinkara. All the other rules, they're Kinkara. You know what Kinkara means? Kinkara means a what maker. Yeah? Kin means what. And Kara, what make. So what? What should I do? Servant. That's Kinkara. So all the other rules in the Shastras, they're the servants of this one rule, which is both in two ways. Don't forget Krishna, always remember Krishna. It's one rule, expressed in positive and negative wording. But, that's the one rule. And Prabhupada's gloss on that is, and this is verbatim, of all the regulative principles, the spiritual master's order to chant 16 rounds is most essential. So Prabhupada is given us a key here to Smartavya Satatam Vishnu, to come to this goal, of remembering Krishna. And if we can remember Krishna, then that will be tested. And that will be tested finally, the final examination, that will be at our last breath, what we can remember and what we will forget. So that is our program now. As Krishna says, Krishnastvadi Padapankaja Pancharantam Ajaiva Vishatame Manasa Rajahangsa Prana Prayana Samaye Kapavata Vitaye Kantavaro Danavido Smaranam Kutaste. Yes, that, let me die now. Why? Yeah, because now I'm thinking of Krishna. My mind is in proper order. I'm still, mentally capable. But what about when I become 99 years old, if I live that long? And I become senile, or I get, some Parkinson's disease or, something, and I'm no longer mentally capable. How will I think of Krishna then? What if I die in that condition? My mind is somewhere else. Better I die now. That's the prayer of the Kulashekar, right? Yeah. The great Acharya in the Ramanuja Sampradaya. But speaking of the Ramanuja Sampradaya, Ramanuja, I heard this from Indra Swami, and it's confirmed also several times that Ramanuja was very, very concerned. He had many, many disciples. And as a guru, acharya, he was responsible that they would become successful and fulfill the mission of human life. And that, as we all know, yam yam vapi smaram bhavam jajatyante kalevaram. Oh my God, it's time to quit. Okay, let me just finish up this point and then we'll open for any questions and comments. Now, so Krishna says, whatever you remember at the time of death, that you will attain without fail. Right? So Ramanuja, he went to Varadaraj, right? Asked the deity there, the best of all benedictors. And he prayed. He said, what if one of the devotees, the disciples here, what if they forget you at the time of death? Something may happen, maybe a, coma, whatever. The physical body is not reliable. You get old, you get sick, and, we've seen even, some God brothers who have been for decades, some half their, 50 years of solid service, but then, they become disturbed. So, what to do? But what did Varadaraj say? Varadaraj, he assured Ramanuja. He said, if my devotee forgets me at the time of death, then I remember my devotee. Hare Krishna, thank you very much. So the 3 points were, right? The first one is that we should yes, thank you. That we should be very, very careful in judging devotees. Discriminate. You have to make up your mind who you're going to put your faith in. That's the one thing. But you should be very, very careful to be judgmental. 2, we should remember that Krishna is the friend, right? And our ability to, protect our sons and daughters, that will be because we have our integrity to our own principles of devotional service. And when we are, Krishna conscious, then Krishna will intervene, even if we're busy doing our service. Then Krishna will intervene and give protection to our, descendants. Even if they're non-devotees, Krishna will give them special protection. And then the third point was that prepare. Like the Boy Scouts of America, their motto is Semper Paratus, always prepared. What a wild example, sorry about that. But anyway, it's a proper that we should be prepared. Okay? Thank you very much for your attention. It was a great honor to have this possibility of speaking here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. We have a few minutes. If it's the paper said 9:15. I think it said, right? General Manager 9:15. Okay. But we can quit now. Maybe we have service to do. Anybody has urgent service, please go on your way. Okay. But if anybody has any question. Here we have Shloka Sadhu, who was helping me out when I was falling from my memory.
Prabhu, you had mentioned that be careful about being judgmental, but discriminate. Please, could you elaborate on that a little bit? Because it sounds very similar.
I heard, discriminate and also don't be judgmental. And then what?
Can you please elaborate on that? Because being discriminating can be very close to being judgmental.
Right. You must know. Ultimately, Krishna has placed the responsibility on your shoulders. You have to decide who you're going to put your faith in. So, it's, what was that? Only you decide. In the, at the end. Yeah. Only you arrive at your own made end with no one but yourself to be offended. I heard this from a song years before I became a devotee. There was a great singer named George Harrison, and he had been greatly influenced by Srila Prabhupada. And he started to introduce these, bhakti into his songs. And one thing he was pointing out in a song called The Run of the Mill, which is called All Things Must Pass. He said, only you arrive at your own made end with no one but yourself to be offended. It's you that decides. So, the responsibility is on our shoulders. You cannot be just a blind follower. That's not going to work. You're going to get yourself into trouble, and then who's going to pay the price for that trouble you got yourself into? You. So you got to discriminate. You have to keep your eyes open, and you have to be consulting just like it's mentioned here, that Maharaj Bharat, he did not consult the spiritual master when he became attached to this, helpless, what he considered helpless deer. He didn't consult. So he made a mistake. So, the open-mindedness and the broad-mindedness and the self critique of, not considering oneself capable of judging, a devotee, that does not preclude the fact that we have the heavy responsibility to, fly your own airplane. That was what Prabhupada said, right? When the Pandavas, they just left, right? It's mentioned there in the first canto. And then Draupadi and Subhadra, they didn't give it, faintest attention. But she was prepared. She had been trained. So she also knew how to attain that same goal, the Pati Loka, I think they call it. So we have to be like that, Prabhupada, in that regard, he says the spirit, I heard this also from, it was either Janani Vas or Pankajangri Prabhu. They said that one of them told me that the spiritual master will guide you to the threshold, but it's up to you to step over. You got to fly your own airplane, because Krishna, he doesn't want, just automats, like robots who just follow the spiritual master, just like that. No, Krishna wants dynamic individuals, with autonomy, this word, individuality. He's not a Mayavadi who just thinks, oh, everybody's going to be the same, No, he likes it when, we're getting off the point here, but maybe, it said Lampata, some gopi in Vraj Bhakta will become angry at him, and he becomes satisfied by that. But Radha, she says, watch out, if some gopi becomes, proud that she has, captured Krishna by her anger, then you have to give that up with the effort. And then Radha warned, however, if that gopi maintains anger at Krishna when it's no longer satisfying for his service, then I curse that woman to be struck in the head with a thunderbolt. So watch out for, being careful to discriminate does not preclude that we have to be very broad-minded. Who are we? Speaking for myself, I'm going to judge some, senior Prabhupada disciple who's been serving Prabhupada, no. But still, I'm not going to follow any example which is not according to the proper principle. Something like that. Okay? Is that all right? Yeah. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Okay, last one.
Yeah. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so very much for the wonderful class, Prabhu. I have a question.
Is that Shambhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, my eyes are bad and old.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yes.
What is the root cause of judgmental activity and
Wait a
how to
wait a
get
second.
over it.
What is the root
What
cause of
root cause of judging others,
judgmental?
and how to get over it. This is number one. And as a part of the management, one has to deal with different types of situations wherein some judgmental activity comes into picture. How to address that?
Right.
What's the best way to deal with it? Hare Krishna. Prabhu.
Wow. Very good question. And, it ain't easy to be a leader. No. Because as soon as you accept a responsibility in an administrative post, then you're going to get yourself into a lot of criticism. That's a sociological law. So just be ready for it. You have to be very equanimity, very even-minded. But to answer your very intelligent question, I don't know, I've never really had much managerial responsibility, but my humble suggestion is that to the cause of being judgmental, which is, overstepping one's prerogative. That means, we all have a certain job to do according to our swakarma, right? And that should be done as, tamabhyarcha, as a worship of the Lord. So if you have that position of responsibility, then do it. You have to call a spade, isn't it? Prabhupada would not be pleased if, you just think, oh, well, I'm Krishna conscious. Let them steal the merchandise. Let the place rot to hell. And, I'm, not go, I must think about, Vraj Leela pastimes. No, you have to be very, very accountable. That's actually the very first impression. Now we're wrapping up here that Prabhupada I ever got from Prabhupada. And that was when I met him in 1976. And the first impression I got from Prabhupada is to be accountable. You have to, what is the report? If Prabhupada think that you have to be ready at any time, that Prabhupada would approach you and say, what is the report? Now, what have you done today? What have you not yet done today? So, for a manager to have that position, that means that you have to take a leadership position. And that entails that you'll have to instruct and have to find fault. And but remember that whatever responsibility you have, it's meant for the pleasure of Krishna, and that you are dealing with servants of Krishna. And you may have to make a judgment in the heat of a moment because that's your position, and you have to do it to keep things going on track when there's a crisis situation. But remember that you may have to afterwards, when you find out the entire gamut of the ramifications of the situation, which you maybe didn't fully comprehend at the time of your judgmental, accusations, then you may have to apologize and, explain to that servant that, had you known the full picture at that time when you made that judgment, then you might not have spoken in that way. You have to be prepared to do that. Sound familiar?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, that's it. It says here, General Manager, okay? 9:15. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Oh, glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga.
Hare Krishna. So we are very thankful to Prabhuji for such enlivening class. And Prabhuji is going to also give a class at 11 o'clock in Dwarkapuri Hall. The topic is Prabhu Tatta Desh, and he's going to give from 11 to 12:30 in Dwarkapuri Hall. So all the devotees, you are requested, you can join for this class. And we'll thank Prabhuji for this wonderful class by once loudly chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.